Hello, grade 9. It's me, Mr. Ramsey, and welcome to our lesson 3 of our science class. The topic that we'll have today is about menstruation. Before we go to our topic, let us review first the topic that we have last week. Number 1 here is corpus luteum. So what is a corpus luteum? So corpus luteum is a structure produces hormones to prepare the uterus for pregnancy if fertilization occurs. And during ovulation, this follicles forms in a structure called your corpus luteum. Another is your vulva. So what is a vulva? So vulva is the outer part of the female genitals. So the female genitals are together known as your vulva. So it is composed of three: your labia majora, your labia minora, and your clitoris. So labia majora, you know that is a covering. So it covers and protect the genital area. So your labia minora is a thin membrane folded just outside the vaginal opening. And your clitoris is a short shaft with a sensitive tip for arousal. So it covers by a fold skin. So for your cervix, your cervix is the one that connects the uterus and your vagina. So it can be found in the middle of your uterus and your vagina. So the topic that we'll have today is about menstruation. So let us spell the word menstruation. 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 So these are the vocabularies that we're going to use for this topic. Number 1 is menstruation. So spell the word menstruation again. menstruation. Menstruation. Next is your fertilization. Fertilization is spelled as fertilization. Fertilization. Next is zygote. Zygote is spelled as zygote. Zygote. Next is your oviduct. Oviduct is spelled as oviduct. Oviduct. Next is disintegrate. 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 Next is stimulate. 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 Next word is secrete. 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 So what is a menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle is the process of ovulation and menstruation in women. Again, menstrual cycle is the process of ovulation and menstruation in women. When you say ovulation, it is the release of an egg from your ovary into your fallopian tube or your oviduct, and it typically happens about 13 to 15 days before the start of each period. When you say period, it is also what you call your menstruation. When does menstrual cycle begins? A menstrual cycle begins with the first day of your period, or what you call your menstruation. So another term or another word for your period is your menstruation, and starts over again when the next period begins. So throughout the monthly menstrual cycle, your body makes a different amounts of chemicals called your hormones to prepare for your pregnancy. So here, what is a menstrual cycle? So there are 4 phases of your menstrual cycle. So the first part here is menstrual phase. So during the menstrual phase, it is from 1st to 5th day. So uterine lining breaks down and menstruation occurs. So this is in the menstrual phase. Next is the follicular phase. So in the follicular phase, uterine lining thickens again. So this one is the uterine lining. Okay, this one is the uterine lining. So it thickens again during the follicular phase. Next is ovulation phase. So in ovulation phase, this is when the ovulation occurs. So this usually happens on the 14th day. It is when the ovary releases the egg. Next is your luteal phase. So in the luteal phase, it is where the uterine lining continues to thicken, ready for implantation. Okay, so what is a menstrual cycle? Here we have menstruation. So menstruation when the uterus lining is shed. And then after that, after the 6th day or during the 6th day, the uterus lining starts to grow again. And the 11th day to the 18th day, ovulation happens. So a mature egg is released from the ovary. Usually it is in the 14th day. And if there's no fertilization that will happen, so the egg dies, and but the uterus continues to thicken, and this will result to again the cycle of menstruation. Okay, so during this menstrual phase, the endometrium shreds. That's why there's bleeding, because this endometrium here contains blood. Okay, those are the blood vessels here. So it contains blood. So when during menstruation, this endometrium shreds. That's why there's a blood flow. Next is your follicular phase. So follicular phase, this is when the endometrium again starts to thicken, and then the ovary is developing the egg. There's a follicle that protects the egg, and then after that, ovulation phase. It is when the ovary releases the egg from going to the uterus. Okay, passing through your oviduct or your what you call your fallopian tube, and there will be thickening of the endometrium. So when the egg is released during the luteal phase, it will wait if it will be fertilized by the sperm. And if there's no fertilization that will happen, then there's then the endometrium will shed again, and there's a menstruation or your blood flow. So that is the process of your menstrual cycle. So what is a menstruation? So menstruation is also called your period. So another word for menstruation is period. So menstruation or your period is a normal vaginal bleeding that occurs as a part of women's or a woman's monthly cycle. So every month, a woman's body prepares for pregnancy. But if there's no pregnancy that will occur, the uterus or your womb, so your uterus, another word for your uterus or your womb, sheds its lining. So you say sheds, there will be breakdown of the lining of the uterus. That's why you have blood flow, because it's rich in blood vessels or your blood. So the menstrual blood is partly blood and partly tissue from inside the uterus. So this is how your menstrual cycle begins. So your menstrual cycles vary from between 15 to 31 days. The first day of the cycle is the first day of the blood flow, or what you call your day 0, known as your menstruation. Again, the first day of the cycle is the first day of the blood flow, which is known as your day 0, okay? Known as your menstruation. So the first day of your blood flow is known as your day 0 or your menstruation. So during your menstruation, the lining of the uterus is broken down and shed of the menstrual flow. So here, as you can see here, this lining of the uterus is breaks down. Okay, so the line of the uterus breaks down and shed the menstrual flow. So there's menstruation already. So there's a blood flow. So FSH and LH, so these are your hormones. So FSH is what you call your follicle stimulating hormone. Again, follicle stimulating hormone. And your LH, which is what you call your luteinizing hormone, are the hormones released on day 0, beginning both menstrual cycle and ovarian cycle. So FSH, it is for egg maturation, and LH is for egg release, or during ovulation when the egg is released. So that's the LH that is doing that. So both FSH and LH, or your follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, stimulate the maturation of single egg in one of the ovaries and the secretion of estrogen. Okay? So when there is already rising levels of estrogen in the blood, it will trigger also the secretion of your LH. So your LH here, or your luteinizing hormone, stimulates the egg maturation and ovulation from day 14, or the mid cycle of the menstrual flow. So your LH, or your luteinizing hormone, stimulates the remaining follicle cells to form your corpus luteum, which produces both estrogen and your progesterone. Okay, so your estrogen and progesterone here is produced by your corpus luteum. So what stimulate the forming of the corpus luteum? It's your LH. So what is the function of your estrogen and your progesterone? So your estrogen and progesterone are the hormones which stimulate the development of your endometrium and preparation of the uterus lining for implantation of a zygote. So your estrogen and progesterone, again, these are the hormones that stimulates the development of the endometrium. So this one is your what you call your endometrium. So the estrogen and progesterone are the one that is responsible, those are responsible for the stimulation of the development of your endometrium. That's why your endometrium thickens. Okay, so in that way, there will be preparation for the uterus lining, or your endometrium here, for implantation of a zygote, or your fertilized egg. But if pregnancy does not occur, so there will be drop in FSH, or your follicle stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone, that will cause the corpus luteum to disintegrate. When you say disintegrate, the corpus luteum will break down. Okay, so the corpus luteum will break down, and then after that, it will stop producing your progesterone. So that will happen. So the drop in these hormones, so what are these hormones again? So your LH and your FSH, which is your luteinizing hormone, and your follicle stimulating hormone, it will also cause the shedding of your cells in the inner lining of the uterus by a series of muscle contractions of the uterus. As you can see here, there is a shedding of the lining of the uterus, or what you call your endometrium, or your endometrium lining. So there will be shedding. That's why there's a blood flow, as what you call your menstruation. So that's all for today. For additional information about the topic that we have, please watch the video attached and answer the quiz in our Google Classroom. So thank you everyone. Hope to see you soon.